This video is brought to you by Ground News. Today, Serbia's Prime Minister steps down following mass protests. Trump's freeze of federal grants and loans is blocked by a judge, and a poll finds that just 6% of Greenlanders want to join the USA. From TLDR News, this is your daily briefing for Wednesday the 29th of January 2025. Our main story today, the Serbian Prime Minister Milos Vučević announced his resignation yesterday as mass anti-government protests have engulfed the country, triggered by a collapse of a recently renovated canopy at a train station in Serbia's second largest city, Novi Sad, that killed 15 people around 3 months ago. What started as small commemorative gatherings for the victims has exploded into a wave of mass protests led by students, which have swept Serbia after the government failed to properly indict government officials who were responsible and release the necessary documents surrounding the reconstruction of the station. The largest protest drew around 100,000 people in December, the largest demonstration in Serbia since the toppling of Slobodan Milosevic 25 years ago. Daily protests have continued since December. Last Friday, students called for a general strike, and on Monday, thousands of people blocked one of the main highways in the city of Belgrade, Serbia's capital city. This week, students in Novi Sad called a protest gathering outside the ruling party's offices, when two armed thugs walked out of the offices and assaulted a handful of students, some of whom were seriously injured. Following these attacks, Vučević handed in his resignation and also said that the mayor of Novi Sad will also be resigning, meeting the protesters' demands, and said, "We feel we are objectively responsible for what happened in Novi Sad and are resigning and paying the political price. This should ease tensions and bring back dialogue." Meanwhile, Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić has said that a decision to either hold new elections or form a new government will be made within 10 days following Vučević's resignation. There's more on the way, but remember to subscribe and ring the bell for more daily briefing tomorrow. Plus, if you want to support the channel like Holly, Cheers, TLDR Daily, Talmage, then consider joining the TLDR Daily membership program for just $1.99. A US judge has temporarily blocked President Donald Trump's order to freeze trillions of dollars in federal grants and loans, which had caused widespread confusion and concern. Trump's acting head of the Office of Management and Budget ordered agencies yesterday to temporarily pause all activities related to obligations or disbursement of all federal financial assistance, so it could be vetted to ensure it aligns with Trump's plan to purge the government of what he calls a woke ideology. However, the sweeping order soon disrupted Medicaid and various other programs, and sparked confusion in Washington and around the country as to its scope and extent, with people fearing losing their jobs and access to healthcare and other services. However, in response to a lawsuit, US District Judge Lauren L. Ali Khan imposed a short-term halt to Trump's order, saying the government doesn't know the full scope of the programs that are going to be subject to the pause, adding that she would issue a more permanent decision on February 3rd. Top Democrats assailed Trump's order, not just for its potential, quote, devastating consequences across the country, but also for its constitutional implications. Democratic attorneys general from 22 states also filed a lawsuit against the move, saying Trump had gone far beyond his legal authority by trying to pause funding already allocated by Congress. And an independent senator from Maine, Angus King, who caucuses with the Democrats, went as far as calling it the most egregious assault on the power of the institution of Congress in American history. In a separate move, Trump's Office of Personnel Management on Tuesday offered some 2 million federal employees the option to resign but be paid through the end of September, as part of his effort to overhaul the federal workforce by slashing its size. The mass email set out 4 pillars for the reformed workforce, including a return to office and enhanced standards of conduct to ensure employees are reliable, loyal, and trustworthy. A recent opinion poll published by Danish daily Berlingske has revealed that an overwhelming 85% of Greenlanders oppose potential annexation of their semi-autonomous island by the United States. This survey, conducted by pollster Verian, comes on the heels of US President Donald Trump's comments earlier this month, asserting Greenland's importance to US security and suggesting Denmark relinquish control of the strategically significant territory. The poll found that only 6% of respondents favour becoming a US territory, while 9% remain undecided. Greenland, which boasts a landmass larger than Mexico and a mere population of 57,000, enjoys considerable self-governance rights, including the ability to pursue independence from Denmark via a referendum, as established in 2009. Greenland's Prime Minister has been vocal in rejecting the notion of selling Greenland and emphasises that the future of the island resides in the hands of its people, saying last month, "We don't want to be Danes, we don't want to be Americans, we want to be Greenlanders." Meanwhile, Denmark is increasing its military presence in the Arctic, recently announcing an investment of 14.6 billion crowns, which is around $2.04 billion, to enhance security in the region. The US maintains a military base at Pituffik Space Base, vital for its missile warning systems, underscoring the island's strategic relevance. And finally, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz announced yesterday that Israeli troops will maintain the strategic position they seized in Syria last month for an indefinite period. Katz made the statement during a visit to the troops stationed on Mount Hermon, emphasizing Israel's commitment to preventing hostile forces from establishing themselves in southern Syria. Mount Hermon, part of a prominent mountain range straddling the Syria-Lebanon border, offers a commanding view of the Damascus countryside and the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights, territory seized during the 1967 war. Israeli forces initially cast its incursion last month into a previously demilitarized buffer zone inside Syria as a temporary move to prevent hostile forces moving into the area in the power vacuum left by the collapse of Bashar al-Assad's dictatorship. Forces have reportedly encroached into a UN-monitored demilitarized zone within Syria, with some operations extending beyond its boundaries. Israeli officials had previously said that the moves were limited and temporary to ensure the security of Israeli borders. The Israeli troop presence has drawn criticism from several nations and the United Nations, which has labelled the military action as a violation of international agreements. The UN envoy to Syria warned Israel risked damaging the chances of a peaceful transition in the fragile state. Despite the pushback, Katz reiterated Israel's resolve to strengthen its security measures in the volatile region and safeguard Israel's borders, underscoring the ongoing geopolitical complexities in southern Syria. If you want to keep diving into the news, then you should check out Ground News. For instance, take this story about Trump's threat to impose tariffs on Canada as part of his agenda we mentioned earlier. Right away, you can see 77 outlets reporting it, with 72% leaning left and only 20% leaning right. If you compare the headlines, you'll start to see some interesting framing emerge. This is all possible thanks to our sponsor, Ground News, a website and app developed by a former NASA engineer on a mission to give readers an easy, data-driven, objective way to read the news. They pull in stories from all over the world and organize them by story, and every story comes with a quick visual breakdown of the political bias, factuality, and ownership of the source's reporting, all backed by ratings from 3 independent news monitoring organizations. One of my favorite features is their blind spot feed, which shows you stories underreported by one side of the political spectrum or the other. Now, as an impartial news outlet, we're passionate about informing our viewers about bias and helping them to understand how it affects the media they consume. Ground News is very effective at this, showing you exactly how each side of the political divide covers each story you see online. And best of all, we're currently offering viewers 40% off their Vantage plan, which includes unlimited access to all of their amazing features like their blind spot feed. So go to ground.news/TLDR, click the QR code here on screen, or use the link in the description to subscribe today.